Yo, what up, y'all? It's your boy Pink, and this week we're doing another movie review. Like I mentioned in the Mortal Kombat review, I went to go see the Michael Jackson biopic the same day. I wanted to give my thoughts on that movie as well. Now, before watching it, I didn't know this movie was going to be 2 hours long, and I wasn't sure how much of Michael's life they were going to depict. Spoilers, I guess. We go until it's 1985, and ever since I heard Super Mega offhand mention the Michael Jackson movie, I didn't notice that during the intro credits, the movie literally starts out with Michael Jackson's when the Universal logo comes on. So that was something that just stuck with me. I'm also recovering from getting sick again. But the movie starts out in 1985 with Michael Jackson getting ready to get onto the stage during his Bad tour with Wanna Be Starting Something in the background. And we see that Michael Jackson's preparing to go on stage, preparing himself by jumping. But we have to go back to 1966 in Gary, Indiana, back to when Michael Jackson was a little kid. Michael sees some kids outside having fun, but Michael has to practice performing with his brothers, who collectively are part of the Jackson 5, comprised of Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, Marlon, and Michael Jackson, of course. The actor for Joe Jackson, Coleman Domingo, crushes this fucking role because this movie will make you hate him the entire movie. And Joe Jackson is trying to make sure that the kids play perfectly, not missing a beat, not missing a note, not missing anything. Part of me wants to make a Whiplash joke, but I haven't seen that movie, surprisingly, as a music producer. Michael Jackson wants to have fun, but he can't. He has some shaky singing, and he can never look at Joe in his eyes. They're practicing the song, which was actually their first single, Big Boy. We cut to a family dinner and Michael is playing with his food. I noticed it throughout my second watch of the movie. Whenever Joe speaks in general, all of the joy at Michael's face dies. But Joe mentions that they're getting the boys their first gigs, and it seems like he's trying to live his own dreams through them because he mentions that you either win or lose in life. We cut to the first performance, which is the song You've Changed, and you see little Michael just dancing while singing, and the band gets a positive reception. Joe is unhappy though. When they get home, he wants them to immediately start practicing again. Michael says he doesn't want to because he's tired, and then we see Joe Jackson literally beat him. And I'm surprised that we actually saw it, and reiterates that winning or lose quote. And even though I kind of wish that Joe Jackson said it more, this was the only instance where we hear him call Michael Big Nose. Obviously that stems a lot of insecurity for Michael, hence why he got surgery in the future. In my opinion, maybe it's because of how the dynamic was back then. This is like the late 60s, but the mom just enables Joe's treatments of these kids because they have to go to school, but he's like, no, fuck it, we need them to perform, we need them to be perfect music wise, like fuck school, da da da. Even though towards the end of the movie the mom fights for them, it's better than nothing, but it's a little too late for that. After seeing a sad young Michael Jackson cry in the bathroom, he cheers himself up by reading his favorite story, Peter Pan. I just found it funny that he labeled Captain Hook as Joseph. We cut to a montage of them performing Stand, and we also see Michael Jackson's love of dance. Cut to 1968 in Chicago, Illinois at the Regal Theater, where Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers are performing I Heard It Through the Grapevine. The boys are introduced and they're playing Never Can Say Goodbye. This is when we see Suzanne DePass, and she's interested in the band. She's from Motown Records, and Joe Jackson introduces himself as their manager. We then cut to 1969 in Motown in Los Angeles, California, where everyone meets Berry Gordy, who's a producer and the president of Motown, so that they can record I Want You Back. They first start with Michael to record vocals, though while he's singing he keeps dancing. They tell him to stop, although eventually they do get the take that they want. There was a point where Joe Jackson wanted to have a talk, but Barry tells him to back down. Juliano can fucking sing. Barry gives Michael some praise and even teaches him a little bit about mixing, but Joe Jackson takes him away. But before then, Michael goes and gives Barry a hug and tells him if he has anything on his mind, he can come see him. We then cut to the band performing ABC, and Barry tells Michael to say that he's 8 to sell himself better. They start getting popularity, and we even see them rising to #1 on the Hot 100 charts. We then cut to 1971 in Havenhurst in Encino, California. The family moved out due to their success, and we see that Michael Jackson has a pet rat, where he then meets his head of security, Bill Bray. Michael and his mom watch Gene Kelly Singing in the Rain, and he tries to talk to his mom into getting a llama over ice cream, where he mentions that these pets aren't his pets, but they're more his friends. Though his mom wants him to have more real friends, and Michael wants it for sure, but kids don't see him as a normal kid and think that they just want pictures with him. His mom tells him to let your light shine. We then cut to the band performing at a carnival, where they're singing I'll Be There, and Michael brings a smile to his special needs girl. It was very sweet. We then cut to years later in 1978, where Michael is now an adult, meeting with Quincy Jones about a solo album. Michael wants to tell Joe Jackson to his face about it, but he gets his label people to do it for him. Joe Jackson has no issue with signing the contract, but he wants Michael to do the album in his free time so that he can still sing with his brothers. Then we just cut to Michael talking to his llama that he eventually got somehow, but he fulfills his word and goes to record the album at night with Quincy Jones. Michael gives himself some affirmations before he starts recording Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, and what I thought was really interesting is that the way that the vocals were done in this movie is that we have Jafar Jackson's actual vocals mixed in with Michael's studio and live vocals, and they kind of blend really nicely. There's an interesting video that I saw during the recording of this review. You can see where Jafar's vocals are while mixed in with Michael's vocals, so that was really interesting. But during the recording process, we cut to the music video of Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, and there are swarms of people at Michael Jackson signing for his first solo album, Off the Wall. We also see that he has peacocks. People also crowd his home, while Michael Jackson also visits some sick children. And I appreciate during some of the writing process that we see in this movie, they show that Michael Jackson beatboxes a lot, because that was something that always interested me about Michael Jackson. For those that don't know, I was a big fan of Michael. Growing up, I used to listen to his albums and singles. I used to rip them off websites before I got the actual CDs. But we are shown when he gets Bubbles. I almost thought that they got a mix of CGI with an actual chimpanzee, but no, Bubbles is fully CG in the movie. And we cut to Michael Jackson getting his rhinoplasty. We also see that he's dealing with his vitiligo, and the doctor reassures that Michael doesn't need any work, but Michael says it's so that he looks better in photos. Obviously, this stems from Joe calling him Big Nose throughout most of his life, though the movie only showed it once. Michael sneaks back into his home, but Joe stops him, and even as an adult, Michael still can't look at his dad in the eyes, but he says to Joe that the surgery was for his sinuses. Michael also has a giraffe. I wrote giraffe in all caps. And a boa constrictor. Michael, of course, wants to break free from his father. Joe Jackson still wants to have control over him, so he plans a tour with a live album with the Jackson 5, who are then called the Jacksons at this point. Michael refuses, but Joe basically guilt trips him into doing it. Michael runs away with Bill, his head of security, to finally start pursuing his dreams, leaving his old home, overwhelmed, but still smiling and waving with his shades on as he leaves. Michael has a talk with Bill about how he wants to break free and go on his own path. Though Michael went back to perform on the Triumph tour, we get a whole montage showing that there are sold out shows in multiple venues while the band performs Ben, and we see a shot of Michael Jackson's notebook where he writes, "Be true to who you are, be free to create." We then cut to 1981 in LA, where Michael is having a meeting with a bunch of executives at a record company, where he meets Joe Branca, an entertainment lawyer who has also worked with the Beach Boys, Neil Diamond, and Bob Dylan, to name a few. After the meeting, Michael starts working with Branca, and Michael's first job that he gives to him is to fire Joe through fax. When Joe gets the fax, he wants to beat Michael and kind of implies that he might have hit Catherine, at least in my opinion. Possibility that he might have. But this is the point where Catherine, Michael's mom, finally defends him, saying that he's grown and he's carving his own path. Joe responds by saying that he's the reason that Michael is so successful, even though we all know that this was Michael's own success since it was a solo album. We then cut to a toy store where Michael ends up getting swarmed, signing toys for a bunch of fans. He then goes to visit the family, wants to play Twister with them, but they all feel like they're old and they have their own plans. So Michael plays with Bubbles. And I kind of find it interesting that there is a soundtrack for this movie. A lot of it is just songs from either the Jackson 5, the Jacksons, or Michael Jackson's own music. Joe confronts Michael about firing him and tries to guilt trip him again. Michael then visits a bunch of sickly kids at a hospital, and he talks plans with Branca, saying that he doesn't want to do any presser interviews because he wants to stay mysterious. But in order to do that, Branca tells him that he needs to have some killer demos. So Michael starts working in his own studio, has a bunch of post-it notes for ideas like want to be starting something, and then sees gang violence in the news between the Bloods and the Crips, and he gets inspired to unite them through music and dance. We then see his process in writing Beat It. He hits up Bill to go meet with the gang members in a studio while waiting for him or having a dance battle. They work on the choreography for Beat It, and then Michael wants everyone to be in the short film, and eventually they just make the whole Beat It music video. Michael is then trying to figure out the single for the album and gets inspired by the 1953 House of Wax movie with Vincent Price, then decides besides Thriller is the leading single. We then cut to the Thriller music video shoot, and it was really cool seeing the, I guess, quote-unquote modern version of what the shoot would have looked like. I thought that was interesting. We then cut to Michael and Branka meeting with Walter Yetnikoff, who's the president of CBS, to get a music video on MTV, but this was controversial at the time because MTV did not want to show any black artists on their channel. Michael convinces Yetnikoff, he makes a call threatening the MTV president that if he doesn't show the Michael Jackson music video, he's going to pull all of his CBS artists off of their network. I didn't notice that the person playing Walter Yetnikoff was Michael Myers the entire time. It didn't click with me until I actually saw the cast, and I was like, wait, what the fuck? We then cut to 1983 in Motown 25 in Pasadena, California, where we see the iconic performance of Billie Jean, and we are told that Thriller has sold over 25 million records. Suzanne and Barry congratulate Michael on the performance, and so does his family, until Joe walks in and makes it all about money and himself. Joe Jackson goes to meet up with Don King to set up another tour, the Victory Tour, and wants to form a partnership with Don King. Don brings up the idea of bringing the boys over to Pepsi since they want to get into the music game, but Don King won't do it unless Joe somehow gets Michael to agree. Joe visits Michael and says that he always knew that Michael would be successful. I even wrote down a quote saying, "I let you do an album by yourself. How about you do this for me?" Guilt trips Michael again by bringing up his family. He knows that Michael wouldn't want his family to be let down, and then we cut to the infamous Pepsi commercial incident. For those that don't know, a pyrotechnic goes off on Michael during filming and ends up burning his scalp. He's taken to the hospital, and people still try to swarm the ambulance. And I know Michael is one of the biggest artists in the world at the time, and even still now, but the fact that people are swarming his ambulance, he's literally in critical condition. Can you please back the fuck up? But Michael still makes an effort to wave at the fans even though he's in grueling pain. The doctor tells the family that his scalp will have permanent damage, and Joe only cares about when he'll be back performing on stage, even though Michael could have died from this accident. Michael isn't eating, and that brightness that he once had throughout the movie has really dimmed. His mom tries to console him, but he tells her that he doesn't want to discuss the matter, and eventually tells her that what happened wasn't her fault. And we also shown that Michael, even though he's in pain, still makes time for the other children in the hospital. Branka visits him, and Michael wants to do more for the kids, since seeing them all in pain breaks his heart. Branka tells him that he's giving 7 figures for the incident, but Michael wants every penny to be donated to the hospital's burn center. Joe still wants Michael to go on the tour, even though he just got released from ICU but is still in the hospital, and Catherine says that Michael has his own path, and so do the other boys. We then cut back to the hospital where Michael says that God gave him a second chance, so he has to shine his light, spread love and joy, and that he says he's going to do the tour for his family, but after that, he's going to break free from Joe to form his own path. We then cut to 1984, the final night of the Victory Tour. Joe is bragging in the green room, I guess, that after this he wants the boys to go on an international tour. While Michael and his brothers are performing Human Nature, this is one of the only songs in the movie that we get a full performance of. Yes, we got multiple performances throughout the movie, but they were mostly just the beginnings of it or parts of it, and then we get a montage throughout. But this was one of the only songs that we got like a full performance of, and it was really great. After a quick costume change, Michael goes back up to do the final song of the night, Working Day and Night. Michael thanks everyone, the band, the crowd, his brothers, and announces that this is their last and final tour after performing 20 years together. And I do like that we saw both of Michael Jackson's parents, Catherine looking proud, while Joe Jackson is in despair and disbelief. Then they just finish the song. Joe tries to confront Michael and try to convince him to stop, but Michael walks past Joe Jackson, and Bill stops Joe and tells him that it's over. We then cut to that shot from the beginning of the movie where Michael Jackson is about to start his Bad tour with Bad playing in the background. This is in 1985 in London at the Wembley Stadium, and we even see that people are fainting at the sheer Conquerors hockey that Michael emits. Surprisingly, this was another song that we got a full performance of, and I'm glad that we got a full performance of this one because I love Bad. Michael ends the performance with a smile, and we get the text on screen, his story continues. So maybe we'll get a sequel, and it's good to know that his family were executive producers on this movie, Jackie, Marlon, and LaToya. The credits start with a live version of the medley of I Want You Back, ABC, and The Love You Save. I really liked this movie. Yes, it's a bit long, but it was worth every minute. I personally haven't seen a lot of documentaries on Michael, but this was really good. It reminds me of when Michael actually passed. Back in 2009, I was about 13, and the world literally stopped. when Michael passed. The news channels talked about it for like a week, how we lost a literal legend. At the time, it just didn't feel real. I remember seeing it on the Spanish news and I was like, that can't be. Michael will pull through. When it was reported that he was actually dead, it just didn't feel real. But I am interested if they're going to do a quote-unquote sequel or another part of Michael's biopic. I'm just going to be sad because then potentially this is going to be from 1985 until 2009, and you know, we'll probably see how Michael passes in the movie, which is going to be really sad. But overall, I love the movie. If you're a big fan of Michael Jackson, I highly recommend the movie. It was really enjoyable for me. And special shout out to Jafar Jackson, having to learn Michael's mannerisms, the way he talks, the way he sings, the way he dances. A lot of effort was put into this movie, and I need Jafar to release more music. He has a song out called Got Me Singing. I took a listen to it after watching the movie a second time and it was really good, but I need him to release Universe of Love. That song is really fucking good. I also forgot to mention, the day that I came back from watching the movie, I died because I was sent a meme, and then now that meme is everywhere. The animation by Avocado Animations called Birds for some reason. Now, I haven't listened to a lot of Michael Jackson's posthumous albums, but I know Chicago is one that came from Escape, and this animation features that, and shout out to them for an animation that is taking the internet by storm. So I wanted to give a special shout out to Avocado Animations and give them recognition for their work. With that concludes my thoughts on the movie. I really enjoyed it. Please go watch it yourself and let me know your thoughts if you haven't seen it already. If you did, let me know if you liked it. If you didn't like it, what could have made the movie better. And with that, I've been Pink, and I will see y'all whenever.